going on, everybody? It's Rob here at Etrailer.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Etrailer Class 3 custom fit trailer hitch receiver on our 2016 Subaru Crosstrek. Now, obviously, we know that everybody wants to see what it's going to look like, go over some of the features, so we're going to go ahead and do that first. But if you stick around to the end of the video, we're also going to show you how to get it installed so you can have the confidence to do it at home. But here's what our hitch looks like once we have it installed. This is probably one of my favorite hitches on the Crosstrek. Most of them have the cross tube visible like we have here, but what I really like about this one is it has a square tube design, kind of blends in nicely with the design of our Crosstrek, but I really like the finish on here. It's almost like a flat matte type black, so not only is it going to hide the dirt and scratches really well, but it's going to protect it, and it just looks kind of good on the bottom, blending in, and our Crosstrek sits a little bit lower to the ground, so it's not going to be as noticeable. But a hitch can do a lot of different things for you, and since this is a Class 3, it's going to give us a 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening, which is going to give us the widest variety of options when we can mount up any kind of accessory that we may want. Like I said, a Class 3 is very versatile. We'll be able to tow a trailer, just like most people would assume with a trailer hitch, but at the same time, we can hit the park, go to the trails with some friends, take some bikes with us, or if we just want to really maximize the capacity inside, we could put a cargo carrier back here, move some of that gear, make some room on the inside of our Crosstrek. But regardless of how you're going to be using your hitch, all of the accessories are going to mount through the hitch pin hole here on the side. Now the hitch is going to accept a standard 5/8 pin and clip. Now these aren't going to come with the hitch, but you can find them here at Etrailer.com, along with some locking devices to keep your accessories secure and anti-rattle devices to cut down on the annoying rattling sound coming from the receiver tube. Now if you do plan on doing some towing, maybe you got a small utility trailer or something that you're going to pull, you obviously need a spot to hook up your safety chains. And here we got a loop style welded to the bottom of the receiver tube. If you got most what I consider normal size hooks, there is plenty of room to get them hooked on, take them off. Not going to have to worry about any kind of interference, potentially hitting the bottom of our Subaru. And even with the large oversized hooks, you can see there's still plenty of room to get them hooked on, take them off, and not have to worry about anything. Now as far as the weight capacity goes, that is going to be a pretty important thing when it comes to hitches, because obviously you're looking for a hitch because you have something in mind you want to do. We need to make sure the hitch is up to it. So our hitch is going to have a 525-pound tongue weight. This will be the maximum downward force at the end of the receiver tube. To put that in perspective, that's quite a bit. We're going to be able to carry 4, 5, maybe even 6 bikes with us and really maximize the capacity of those really large cargo carriers. And at the same time, our hitch is going to have a 3,500-pound gross trailer weight rating. That's how much it can pull, but that does include the trailer and the load we have on it. And with all those numbers in mind, I do urge you to double check your Subaru's owner's manual, because those are the ratings for our hitch, and we don't want to exceed the manufacturer's rating for our Crosstrek. Now I'd like to give you a few measurements, and these are going to help you when you're looking for accessories for your new hitch, like a ball mount, a bike rack, or even a cargo carrier. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the outermost edge of the bumper is right about 2.5 inches. Now this measurement is going to help you out when you're looking for folding accessories to make sure you have enough room to put them in the upright stored position and not make contact with the rear bumper. From the ground to the inside top edge of the receiver tube opening is right about 14.5 inches. Now that measurement is going to help you when you're looking for a ball mount so you can find the appropriate rise or drop to match up to your trailer. But at that height also, it's pretty close to being borderline, so I'd recommend a bike rack or a cargo carrier with a raised shank. That way we get a little bit more ground clearance out of it. Now that we've seen what our hitch looks like and gone over some of the features, let's go through the install process together. To begin our installation, we're going to come to the back of our Subaru, and we're going to come underneath the rear bumper here, and on each side of the frame rail, we're going to have a few rubber plugs that we're going to have to pull out. So if we come to the bottom here, you're going to see 3 plugs. We're going to remove the one that's closest to the front and the one that's closest to the back. Easiest way to grab them, pull them out, just grab a flat blade screwdriver, just kind of pry them out and just pop 2 of those plugs out. And we're going to have the same plugs in the same locations on the other side of the frame, so we'll pull those out as well. Now the forward hole is going to be one of our mounting locations, and the rear one is going to be our other mounting locations on both sides. We need to get some hardware in place, and the forward mounting hole, the large one, is also going to be our access hole. But if we take the large carriage bolts out of our kit and the large spacer block, you're going to notice that they don't fit. So we need to enlarge this hole. Now you can do it a couple different ways. You can either use a file, a rotary tool, a drill bit, just about whatever you have. You just want to make sure that the hardware fits in there. I'm going to use a step bit. I just suggest periodically stopping and checking to see if the hardware fits, because we only want to drill it out big enough so that we can get the hardware in place. Now that we know that our hardware fits in the hole perfectly fine, we're going to move to the other side of the frame and repeat that whole process. Now, it's never a good idea to leave exposed metal on your vehicle, so anytime that I drill and expose any metal, I like to come back with some spray paint. I'm just going to cover up the entire area, hopefully preventing any kind of rust or corrosion. So now we can get ready to put our hardware in place. I do want to mention, though, that we do have two different sizes of hardware. One is going to be slightly larger. This is going to be the 1/2 inch hardware. And then we're going to have a little bit smaller. That's going to be 7/16. Now we need to pay attention to the location that we put our hardware, because we're also going to be using pull wires. Now the pull wires are size specific as well. So we'll have one that matches up with our smaller hardware and one that matches up with our 1/2 inch hardware. So to get the hardware in place first, we're going to start with the smaller hardware. So we want to grab the smaller pull wire. Come to our frame, and the hole at the very back of the frame rail is where we're going to be putting the coiled end of our wire. We'll put it in, kind of guide it towards the back, and you may be able to get it come out if you're lucky. If you have to stick your finger in there, be extremely careful, because we did just drill that out. Put a couple bends in there that we can make sure it doesn't go back in the frame. We'll take the small square hole spacer block. We're going to feed it over our pull wire, push it into the frame. We'll take our small carriage bolt. We're going to thread it onto the end of the wire. We'll push the bolt into the frame, pull down. Now you want to be careful when you remove this pull wire, because they only give you one for each size. So we're going to unthread it. We're going to hold on to it, because we're going to need to get the other piece of hardware on the other side of the frame. But while we're over here, we can get our large piece of hardware in. That's going to be going into the large hole. This time we'll take our pull wire and our large spacer block. We're going to go over the coiled end. Again, thread that large bolt onto the end of the wire. And then we'll push the bolt into the frame, kind of push it out of the way. And we'll push the block into the frame. And we're going to drop the block down and have the bolt come through it. And again, you want to unthread your pull wire, because we're going to repeat this process on the other side of the frame. Now we do have one more piece of hardware we need to get in place, except this is actually going in between the hitch and the frame. So rather than trying to hold everything and get all the pieces together, I'm just going to put it onto the hitch now, make it a little bit easier on myself. We'll have these round hole spacers. It's going to go on the forwardmost attachment point on each side, so the one going towards the front of the car. Now to help it hold in place, I'm just going to use a little piece of tape. It doesn't need to be perfectly lined up, it doesn't need to be perfectly still, because it is going to get trapped between the hitch and the frame once we put it in. But this way, it has a little bit of wiggle room, but it'll at least hold it while we lift up the hitch. And we'll do the same thing with the other block on the other side. Now with an extra set of hands, we're going to lift our hitch up. Now I left the pull wires over on the side that has the exhaust, so whoever's over there will have a little bit of an easier time getting the hitch up. So we'll lift it up. You want to go over the exhaust on the passenger side. And then on the driver's side, since we don't have the pull wires attached anymore, you want to be extremely careful lifting the hitch up, making sure you don't push the bolts back into the frame. And once we have the bolts coming down, we can grab the corresponding hex nut. That larger one will go for the 1/2 inch hardware at the front, and we'll get it secured down. Now you want to get at least one nut on each side. That way the hitch will hold itself up and we can work on getting the rest of the hardware in. But each one of the bolts is going to get a flange nut. So you want to make sure you're using the appropriate size one, because the smaller hardware is just going to be a little bit smaller nut. For our smaller hardware, I'm going to use an 11/16 socket. Using an extension and a swivel will definitely help you get access to tighten up that bolt. Now for the larger 1/2-inch bolts at the front here, I'm going to be using a 19mm socket, but you can also use a 3/4-inch socket. And you want to make sure you come back with a torque wrench and torque all your hardware down to the specified amount in the instructions. We're going to repeat that for all of our remaining hardware. Once you have all the bolts torqued down, that'll finish up your installation and your look at the Etrailer Class 3 custom fit trailer hitch receiver on our 2016 Subaru Crosstrek.